This is a 1990 Ford Fiesta XR2i. It's a really, really early car for an XR2i, a year into Fiesta Mark III production, but it's noisy and it's about to rain, so I'll tell you the rest inside the car. So I am at the wheel of this beautiful 1990 Fiesta XR2i. Now, being a 1990, this makes it a very, very early XR2i. The model came out in 1989, having been revealed in 1988, and what it really needed was a range topper, something for the public to just focus and grab their attention, and this was it, the XR2i. This car is for sale with Stone Cold Classics in Rootham. Check out their link below. Thanks guys for letting me borrow the car for the video again. It's 1596cc or 1.6 litre CVH engine, gained fuel injection, which gave it 105 horsepower, which is about 10 more than the standard CVH. And that was something to shout about back in 1990. This particular car was owned by a Ford enthusiast who absolutely lavished attention on it. He has been to town with the wax oil gun. Apparently there was a couple of tiny bits of rust underneath, like the size of like a beer mat, and they've been taken out. You can't even tell where they were, and now the entire underside is lathered in thick wax. This car, unlike most other Fords of its generation, probably won't rust. Well, there's two things to note with this car. First of all, it feels brand new. It's only got 45,000 miles on it, but every component feels like it's factory fresh. You know, there's no squeaks, no rattles. The steering wheel, or the steering itself, is remarkably tight. You give it a little wiggle, everything feels smooth and taut, like a brand new car. Secondly, it is very heavy. There's no power steering, but the tyres on this thing are really quite wide. I think they're 185/60 R13, so they're really small wheels at 13 inch, but quite wide at the same time, so there's a lot of rolling resistance to fight. And the pedals are quite firm under your feet as well, so you really feel like you're driving this thing when you press on into a corner. It's got a 5-speed gearbox, which is great for a car of this age, because a lot of things in the 90s still only had a 4-speed. A 5-speed was quite an exotic accessory to have. And this, like everything else, I don't know if this is original and just very low mile, or if it is have been rebushed anyway, but it feels, you know, completely perfect. It's lovely. The acceleration actually feels a lot brisker than the car actually is. In 90s terms, this was a proper, genuine hot hatch, but in today's world, you know, things have moved on. So 0 to 60 in 9 seconds and a top speed, I've left my notebook behind, but I think it was about 110 miles an hour-ish. I'll write it in the script below. Approximately 110, maybe 113. Was big news, especially in a car as small as this. When things like Porsches were doing 0 to 60 in, say, 6 or 7 seconds, a Fiesta doing 0 to 60 in 9, that was exciting. But it's not just about the top end. The chassis on this car had moved on immeasurably. Well, I say immeasurably, it moved on quite a measured and definable amount. It moved on from the basic suspension of the Mark I and II to a semi-independent torsion beam at the rear, which gave it far better road holding and better road manners. So you could actually throw it around a corner way more exuberantly than before. Now the spec on this car was pretty good as well. The factory sunroof was only a pop-up, but it's a sunroof nonetheless. And you have electric windows. Down here in the centre panel, you have lecky windows. How cool is that? And an electrically poppy open boot lid. I won't push that right now because I'm driving at 50 miles an hour. That would be a mistake. Although, less excitingly, you only get manual twiddly wing mirrors, but you know, you can't have everything, and you know, at least they do twiddle. You haven't got to reach your hand out the window. This car comes with an original Ford radio cassette. It's all branded and everything is sort of green LED on it. LCD, I should say. I remember these from my youth, and my dad had Ford company cars. And someone was seriously into their music, because up on the dashboard you've got 4 pop-out cassette holders and 4 more under the radio below the well. Now I love these velour seats, they are just the best. No one does velour anymore. It should make a comeback. It is so comfortable. It feels quite warm on my back and it's, just sink into it. It's luxury. Up here on the doors as well, you've got the same material, which, you know, obviously gives a nice visual linkage, but feels nice when you rest your arm on the thing. Oh, it's a cracking thing. There's a lot to like about a 90s Ford. And one of the great things about driving a Ford is that everything is so easy and logical to reach. The windscreen wipers are always in the same place, the lights and indicators are always easy to find. This car's drum-shaped instrument stalks, which I don't remember seeing. Obviously I must have done at the time, I just remember the thinner, squarer ones that Fords used to have. And of course under the steering wheel, you've got the bonnet release, not to be mistaken for the steering wheel adjustment. If you happen to be going down the road and think you want to make a minor adjustment, don't pull that lever, that would be a big mistake. This really is a lovely, nimble little thing. It just cries out for great, sharp little corners. This car's got 4 brand new Falcon tyres on it, so the road holding is even better than if it was on a set of knackered old, I don't know, whatever, ditch finders. If you're looking for alternatives to this car, you'd be looking at things like a 205 GTI Mark II. It's Peugeot 106 around at the same time, I think it might have been. Certainly a Vauxhall Nova, its biggest rival out there. I think really the two I would be tossing up in my head if I was in the market for a small hot hatch would be a 205 GTI and the Fiesta. Now without driving one, or without driving them back to back, my instant heart decision would be go to the Peugeot, because, you know, Peugeot 205 GTI, how cool is that thing? But having driven this one, this just feels so solid and so well screwed together. I can't imagine the Peugeot feeling that tight. If you don't remember that buzzer, you don't remember the 90s. It's like the 60s, but without the hallucinogenic drugs, just more of a slightly annoying beepy noise. Back in 1990, there must have been 1 million learner drivers cruising the streets of Britain in sort of 1.1 litre versions of these cars, just dreaming of passing their test, losing the L plates and picking up an XR2i. Of course, that wasn't going to happen. But unfortunately, that wasn't really going to happen for most of them, because everyone loved a hot hatch, especially the car thieves, unfortunately. So insurance premiums on these things went through the roof, and the hot hatch phenomenon died pretty quickly. And soon, there was nothing left but max power specials filled with horrific dimmer body kits and masses of filler. And those are the ones that survived, because let's face it, Ford in the 80s and 90s appeared to be making their cars out of metal that, I don't know, I think they built them with rust to start with, because looking at old Fords now, well, looking for old Fords now is a challenge in itself. Finding one that's free of rust, not been welded, is almost an impossibility. This car is particularly special because the condition it's in is just phenomenal. And it's not just its low mileage, it's been fastidiously maintained and cared for, so it feels like a new car. It looks like one too. When it was new, the CVH engine was criticised by the contemporary reviewers for being too harsh, sounding too rough and raucous. But to be honest, this sounds alright. Maybe the fuel injection helps the situation over the carbureted version of it. And this car wasn't actually in production with this engine for very long, because the Z-Tech replaced it in 1994, giving more power, more smoothness, and I guess more economy as well. I think emissions even then were creeping in as a thing, because catalytic converters became a thing to have a badge on the back of the car for back in the early 90s. Can you imagine now? The badges from that period advertising a 5-speed gearbox, a catalytic converter. What next? Electric windows and a radio? But yeah, that was new technology then. It was a different time. In many ways, I think the 90s was a happier, more positive time. I miss that period of the world. I grew up with these cars around me. I've always known about them and always sort of, not exactly hankered after them, but known they were a halo car. But I've never particularly wanted one, if that makes sense. It's just a car that I know is a great car and it would be nice to have, but it's not something I've gone, I wish I had an XR2i. But having driven this one, I'm kind of going, I'm taking it back to the garage now thinking, I wonder if I can find 12 grand from somewhere. I know I do this a lot with cars. I drive them and instantly fall in love. But yeah, this feels good. So it's better than many of the Fords I owned. I used to use Mark III Escorts from the 80s for work because basically at the time they were more or less disposable. Can you imagine a Mark III Escort being regarded as disposable now? They're actually getting quite expensive. And one Saturday job I had, I would drop off I was using the P6 at the time, drop off my P6 in the office car park on a Friday evening, pick up their it was a Mark III diesel Fiesta van, run around in that doing whatever work they needed me to do, but have the use of the van for the weekend. And I was so excited by it, having a Mark III Fiesta, which is like a brand new car, instead of my 20-year-old P6. Yeah, which is the cooler thing now? Don't answer that, because we all know it's the Mark III Fiesta van. Shush. That gear change is lovely. And thanks for watching, and hope you've enjoyed this little slice of Dagenham's finest. Please hit like and subscribe, help those numbers go up and get the videos out to more people. Yay! Was that too much? It was too much, wasn't it? Sorry. Just hit like and subscribe, and I promise I won't do that again.